Hello and welcome to another episode here at Scriptcase by Jamie. And wow, it has been a crazy week, that much I can tell you. So since we started, of course, the company and everything else, a lot of things are going very well. And then, I don't know, this week, wow. So I'm going to tell you all about it. Okay, so, this week we started off, first of all, of course, on a very good footing. Finished up a project with a client and, of course, another happy client. That was very good. And then, of course, sometime in the evening, I started to realize my email server was losing its connection somehow along the lines there. So, of course, I started looking it up and then I started realizing, or seeing, should I say, that the server was down. So what did I do? I opened the ticket with my provider. Well, 3 days later, this is the reply that I got. And of course it says, "Hello Jamie, I hope this message finds you well." Yes, I was not well because of course my server had just gone down with all my DNS entries for, not only for myself and many of my sites, but also for some of my clients. So no, I was not well because I also received this email 3 days later after opening the ticket. So for 3 days I had already been pulling my hair out. You see already, I've lost some of my hair. A lot of it. Well, it continues. Firstly, I want to extend our sincerest apologies for the ongoing inconvenience caused by the downtime of your mail server. Our team has been working tirelessly to diagnose and resolve the root cause of the issue. Upon thorough investigation, we have determined that there is a critical problem, really, with the storage system linked to your server. Now, before I continue reading this, I should note that I had issues with this server last month. Some of you may know about that already. And I was pointing out that the Frankfurt location of the provider did not seem to be very good right now. I was having problems on another server as well. And I was asking, and I can tell you, with the 35 emails I had during that time, because yes, that was a very ongoing situation we had there, and during which I was screaming manager all the time. Well, I say all the time. Around, after the 10th mail, I think, I started screaming manager. I want to speak to a manager. After every single email, I want to speak to a manager. Please pass me to a manager. No, nothing happened. Not until right at the end. Really flabbergasted by these guys. And that is, of course, why I'm going to continue reading this email. So, specifically, the logical volume associated with your server's disk is missing from all host machines in our Frankfurt data center. Can you believe it? Can you believe what this email says? Despite our extensive efforts to locate and restore this volume, we have not been successful. Given the nature of this issue, we regret to inform you that the current data on this server cannot be recovered, and that includes all of my backups, because the backups were also with this provider. And then they're telling me here that I should create a new server instance to replace. What? Are you kidding? You think I'm going after last month and this month? Implement regular automated. Yes, I had backup solution with you, which you've lost. So what? Come again? Explore setting up a high availability. Why am I using your services? So, that's the reason why I'm sharing this email. The last one was already, the last situation I had with this girl. I'm not sharing the name of the company. If you know what it is, good for you. I may be very angry with this situation, and yes, I've had a few days of pulling my hair out with it because clients without emails, myself without emails, as you may have noticed. So if you've emailed me in the last week, I'm sorry, I have not received any of your emails. I'm sorry, you will have to send them again. So please do so. And yes, this will not be happening again because, of course, as soon as I got this email, you know what I did. I cancelled all my services. I cancelled all my services. I deleted all my servers there, took them all down, changed everything straight away. So some services have been down, especially my email. If you know anything about DNS records, well, it takes time for propagation. There's a heck load of them in some situations. I can tell you just on my domain name, I have probably 55 entries. That is a lot. And then, of course, with the clients I had running. And, of course, yeah, you can imagine. Now, of course, I have replied to this email. And my reply to that was 2 months free of charge for the server that is affected. Now, do you really think I'm going to be continuing with this? No, it's dead, it's gone, removed, deleted, next day, deleted, gone, dusted. Okay, everything's moved from there. They are no more. If anything, just for my junky stuff that I need to test out. Now, this server has been running for years beautifully. The service has been impeccable for years, up until last month. I really don't know what's changed other than, of course, some integrations within their own services, which is really a shame because their new panel, it sucks. It's really difficult to create a server on the fly, which was one of the nice features of this provider, is that I could just spin up a server within seconds, not care about the settings. I can do that as and when I set up the server, which was typically the case, because I typically need a server right then and there and not worry about having to set up anything. Just give me the server. This is what I need done. And those times are now in the past. So, I guess they've had their time now. So that's the way it goes. So if you have tried to email me or reach out in the last week, I'm sorry if I have not been available. You will have to try and reach me now again. Everything should be back up again by the time you see this video. And of course, I'm not going to share who it was, so I do apologize. But yeah, you don't want services like this, okay? You really do not want services like this. And if this is the sort of reply somebody gives you, then yeah, what do you want to do? Okay, so, that's it. And I say that's it. No, because I don't want to. That's not it. I've had a very frustrating week, as you can probably tell from that email. Yeah, it's very crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be diving now into my Scriptcase environment, or I have started already, the new Scriptcase training. And that does give you a nice overview of everything in Scriptcase. It will be around 8 to 10 hours long. So I will say, check that out. It should be ready in a few months' time because, yeah, I just started it. And in the meantime, I was actually looking at one of the projects to do. So if you want me to create here, because I think the main one I have so far is the My Store. So within this project, this is the one I was actually looking at maybe creating as the next project video. If you agree with that one, hit me up. I was more probably going inclined with the stock tracker because I need to have a new stock tracker. And you see, I started generating the applications there and actually started working on that one. So I think that one might be out of the window now, or maybe later on we can look at it. And of course, there's a few other platforms here we can look at. Now, I am also inclined to start here the My Client Company Manager again because that is needed. Let's have a look at what we've got going here. So I'm going to have a look here at my samples project and I'm going to go over some very, what I like to think is basic things in Scriptcase. They're not really basic because what really is basic in Scriptcase? Nothing, right? How to link our applications, because this is pretty much, it's a very common question that I have, and it comes across the table all the time, and sometimes we apply it within a lot of the videos when we're doing, and in general within the project you apply it a lot because really it's needed, right? Now I've opened here a grid application and also a form application. Now here on my grid application, if I come here to application links, I can see here the links that I have available within this grid that link to any other application within my project. So here I am linking via the ID application grid clients, okay, and that's what this application here is. Let's speed my mouse up a bit. And here I have then the type, the edit link, so that's what this is linked to. So we'll have a look at that in a moment. And then we have here the form clients, which is here my form clients. Now to the right here I have the option for properties, link, and also to delete. Now I can delete this link, which I'm going to go ahead and do because we'll have a look at the properties and so forth in a moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-establish this link with this grid and this form. So if I go ahead and run this grid now, it will be like a standard grid, like you've just generated a grid by itself. And then you want to link either a new form that you have generated to this grid, or maybe a control application, a blank application, another grid maybe, whatever it may be. You essentially want to place either a link or the content directly within this grid. Now the grid by default, we have here the details, which, yeah, it's handy, ugly, but it's handy. And with that, well, we are then missing the link here. So I have a few options when I generate this grid application. So I'm going to jump to that now because, well, maybe you're at that stage and maybe you're going to generate your grid first. Now, if I go ahead and say new application, for instance, and I come here to grid, and if I choose here my clients table again, it will automatically complete all of the data. And if I look down here, it says create also a form to edit the grid. Now this option here will only be available when you have a form available for that grid, i.e. you are actually generating this grid on an editable table. If, for instance, you are creating this grid or generating this grid on a view, then this option will always be unchecked because there will be no form you can generate for a view. You would have to create, for instance, a control form, or you can generate maybe a client form and then add the extra fields into that client form and rework the insert for that. Those are the options you would have there, but that's a different topic. So now in this case, I can generate the grid application with the form application or not. And if I do, then I will have the grid as I do here. Now, when I generate my applications, I have also another option here. So I can come here to batch applications. And with the batch applications, I can then choose to generate the form and the grid for the client's table. Okay, and that will again create that join or the linkage that we had just removed from the grids table here. Now, if I generate the applications like that, they will have the linkage available, and of course I will have them like I had just now, and I can go ahead and remove that linkage if I want to. And in many cases today I do, and the reason for that is that when I create here the edit link, let's go ahead and do that. So I'll choose here my form clients, and I am passing the parameter ID clients. The field here is then ID clients, and now the field is the field related to my grid table here, and then I confirm that. So now I'm passing my client ID to my client ID from grid to form. Okay, so now I can choose how I want to deal with that link, whether it opens in a new window, a modal window, a tab, an iframe. You know, those are loads of different options, and that's all, again, a different topic. Now, once I have my link here available, I can then come here to properties, and again, I can access the same information that was available to me just now. And for the link, I can adjust the link itself. So choose a different application I want to bind that link to, or maybe change the variables or parameters that I am passing to that application. So now if I'm editing, for instance, here the form clients and making adjustments in here, I've added into my events more variables or globals to capture, to process within this form, then I would need to reestablish here this link between these two applications, ensuring that my parameters are correctly identified and passed. So that is very important for these linkages. Okay, so if I do now come here to form clients and say here I will add a global variable, I will capture here, say, the user login, and that will say equal the user login all the time, and then I can save that. And then here within my grid clients, when I come here to generate my link again, we will now see that we have the user login here also included. Now I can choose whether that is a field value. Now, as you may have noticed, I have that here as a global value or variable within my form application. So here within this linkage, I could choose fixed value or no value. Okay. Now the reason for that is because I now also want to ensure that I'm also capturing the user login when I am running, for instance, this grid application. And that way it is available when I also come again here to the linkage of these applications. So here again to application links, come back to link. Now I have it available here within the grid and also the form. And if I go next again, we'll see now that I have the variable option available. And here I can choose the user login, which is then also available within this application. So if I have more variables anywhere within the events or the methods or libraries that are used within this application, then those variables will also be available here for this linkage. Now here I would confirm that, and now I would be able to correctly use this grid and form application again. And to test that, I could enter here admin, for instance, click on then the grid clients, accessing the grid with my user login. And then when I come here now, for instance, to add a new application, I am directed here to the form. And then if I have within the form the user login configured, which I don't yet, so let's go ahead here to edit fields. And here, for instance, if I have an update field that captures here the owner, like here I have the owner, so that would then be here my user login again. So here I would say define value, and then here I would indicate my user login, save that. So now in this case, it doesn't matter if it is here or not. So let me uncomment this one. Because I have now stated this global variable within one of the other elements of this form, I can now go ahead and continue here again with the grid. So I will go ahead and save that so that the grid here will capture that. And if I come here again to the link and here link again, you will see that the user variable is here still available, even though now I have commented it out here, but it is of course available within here our fields as a defined variable, which is required now to insert this data. Okay. Right, now that we have that link established here and we have our grid application here updated, let me also show you why I have been removing this link. So if I go ahead and run now the grid application, we will see here, we don't have to enter anything in here now. I'm not going to be entering any data. We see here that we have now the edit and also the details. Now if I go ahead and add here, for instance, an action bar, and if I create a new button here, I would say it is now a button, and if I say whatever I want it to be, but what I've been doing is actually adding a new edit button here instead, and that way I'm also using the exact same style, format, look as well the rest of the buttons I will be applying in here. Now I can set that here as a button, and then I'll just go font awesome icon, add here then the icon, that I then want to use, and that would then be a user icon, for instance. And here for clients, I always like the one with the tie, and add a, well, manage this user. Okay, and then I would save the button and configure the link. And again, you guessed it, I am going to connect this here to the client form. So form clients, go next. And then here again, I'm passing those variables, ensuring that I'm choosing the correct type and then the correct values that I want for that linkage. And then if I go ahead and save, again with the same options as we have for our original application link here. Now if I go run, we then have a nicer, maybe a much nicer edit button, right? So here I have a much nicer edit button. And at the same time, if I now add this button as an Ajax button and not a link, then I can also change this icon depending on maybe a status. So for instance, here within my clients table, I have here active. So instead of having a standard action bar button for a link type, I would instead choose Ajax. So here, edit to, go next. And then here I can now add multiple states. And here then I would say active and also inactive. And then just like that, again, we add maybe the user icon here for the active users. And then here maybe we could add a different icon in here saying maybe the cross here, an inactive user. And at the same time, we can add a color code to this, which is really nice. So if I add here green, say yes, that is a green user. And then, well, this one, we want to have this one as a red user. And then just like that, this one down here, much better. And there we have our red user. And just like that, we have a custom button instead, which then activates depending on the status of the client in this case. So here we have the link button, and here we have the other button I've just added. Now note, of course, the different style there. So if I come here to edit button 2, visual, we have a font awesome. Now if I change that to button and font awesome, and now run it again, we will then have a button very similar to this one, but of course via the client status. And I just went. Okay, so the buttons look identical right now. And now here within our event, on our action buttons, if I come here now to Ajax, and then here we can then add our event. So if, and then it's our field here, and that was active equals Y, then, well, then we are going to, of course, change our button. Else, and then of course we come here to our macro manual, which we all know already, and in here we have the macro we need to use for that. So let's just find that as the button hide down here somewhere. And then here we have the action bar hide and show, and then we can use that very easily within our application here. Just like that. And then here I would then add the button name, and that is then button edit underscore 2. And of course I have an insert going there, so let's make sure we have that correctly. And here we actually want this as a show. There we go, and let's remove that space from there. And then here we want this one as a hide. And of course if we go ahead and run that now, we'll have the status updated according to the user. And of course here I come here to active, and it's actually 1 or 0. Of course we need to have that corrected then. So if it's 1, then we are going to be displaying, it's actually action bar. And then we set the active to 1 or 0, because that's what we have within the database. It could be Y or N, I think it's actually 1 or 0. And then if we come here to our manual, okay, and then what we're looking for here within the macros is the SC action bar clicked state. And then here depending on the click state of this action bar button, we can basically display the different button type. Now note there are more options here to disable the action bar button as well as enable that, to hide it and also show it, so we can hide it or show it depending on the user group. And there are also here the state, so we can change the state as well. And then here, that is what we would then maybe want to add onto the on-click event of the button. So now we can actually add in here. So if I copy that, and then I'm going to paste that in here. So depending on the action bar state, and we called the button underscore client underscore 2. No, it's edit 2, right? Edit 2. We copy that, and then we want that to 1, and then 0, and then if that's 0 there, then save that. And of course we can go ahead and run our application from here. Now we've added that here within the click state, and then we still want to actually add that here within the other options that we have here. So that isn't actually doing anything right now other than maybe changing the state of the button. Now if you want to go ahead and then update the user, for instance, you can check here in the manual. There's more examples here, and here for instance we could just update and also the state of that user. So if I just copy that, for instance, I could place that in here, and then depending if it is state 0, then we want to maybe update our clients table, set active to 0, and where client ID equals then our field client ID, and that would then basically be the same down here, just of course in reverse. So here we would set the status to 1, and we are having it at 0, we would update to 1, and then just like that, now that would actually go ahead and update the actions table. Now to make adjustments for that button to change what it looks like, we need to come here on the on record, and if you come here to on record again, we have then here the same options just here, just changing the state depending on what it is, and here we can place that to. So here if active equals 1, then button edit 1 equals 1. Otherwise, well, that is actually active then. Active, that is our button state that we need there, and we set that as active, and then inactive, and then if that is then 0, it will be inactive. If it's 1, it will be active. And then if I go ahead and run that, let's have a look if we have any of our clients in an inactive state. And then we have then also that displayed here. So if I come then here maybe to Tom Jones Smith, and I change that here to 0, of course I would typically want to update the form as well, so I can just check a box there. And then here let's refresh our grid, and that's not actually working yet, so we need to check what's going on there, and let's make sure we have our buttons here correct, because that's typically what it is, never remembering. And it's actually button edit 2, and there we go. So if it's edit 2, then edit 2 is what we want to update, not but edit 1. And any of you that caught that, well done, because yeah, it's been a long week. Okay, so with that, we can then come back here to our action bar, and let's just make sure we have here within our Ajax event everything correct here. Edit 2, and if I go ahead and run that again now, we have then here grid clients. Let's run that, and now you can see here for the clients which are inactive, we now have an X. Now what you may want to do there also is actually change the color of that, and of course we can just come here to the visual as well. Instead of having the button theme style, we can actually say for the active ones, well, let's change all of those to green, and then here the ones that are inactive to orange, and then we'll give it a hover effect as well. Save that. Of course, adding a hint and everything is very nice, so maybe you would want to go ahead and do that. And if we run that grid again and then check that out, we now have color-coded icons, which then will give us a bit more than just this edit. And of course, if you're using these icons, then these buttons really look out of place, if you ask me. Okay, so with that, of course, that looks very nice. And of course, now if I set then here the redirect for this application, because that's what I need to do now. I have set an Ajax event here now. Some of you might have been screaming for that one. Well, I've set an event there, but I'm not going anywhere, right? Because that's what's happening right now. So here within our button edit 2, if I come here to Ajax, well, I'm updating, but maybe that's not what I want to do for this button, because really, we don't really want to update anything with this, do we? We actually want to edit the form. That's what this purpose is. But, you know, I thought I'd show you that, the update. So here, then we want to look for the SC redirect, and we have that right here. This one's lovely. You're going to use this quite often within your applications, and then here you would then redirect, for instance, to that application. So I'll just paste that in here. Off I go, add my application name, and that is then form clients. And then I just add that there as well, because we're going to go to the same form. And of course, if I wanted to now, when this client is inactive, I could actually send them to a different application, either giving them a message saying it is no longer available, the client's inactive, or it's being processed, whatever you want to do. All of that then becomes possible by doing this. Okay, so with that, if I go ahead then and run the application again, now do note that typically you may want to be passing variables. I have not added the variables here. So now when I click on edit, I may be looking at number 1 now. But let's come back here. Let's try this one here. Benjamin Wilson. Let's click on Benjamin Wilson. And I'm still viewing David Smith. You know why, right? Because I'm not passing no variables here. And we have that example here also. For instance, I could just copy this line here and replace this one. In fact, I'll just place it underneath. And we can comment that one out like so, right? And then we can just copy here the form clients again. What do we have? We have our client ID, which equals then our field client ID. And then we also have our user underscore login, which then equals our global user login, like so. And just like that, well, we have gone ahead and created ourselves a nice little redirect, passing the parameters we need for our application. Now I am going to go ahead and make sure that ID clients is correct and not ID client. So ID clients. And then if I click now on run, off we go, and Shazam, we will have now our application. I've not added the user login there. Clicking on David Smith, fair enough. But now if I click on Sophia Brown, I'm now viewing Sophia Brown. And the same here when I click on Benjamin Wilson again, I am now viewing Benjamin Wilson. Now, in this case, I may only want to have one user displayed. But I'm sorry, that's a different topic. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day, and of course the rest of the week, because the only video you have now for this week is the macro video, and that's all you're going to have for this week. And maybe next week you'll have a project video, or maybe it'll be the week after, but it's coming soon. Don't worry, it's coming soon. So thanks for watching, and don't forget, if you have mailed me in the last week, please do it again. And until the next video.